Recently, lots of governments around the world have been using the electronic system in order to issue essential citizenship documents and certificates to make the process more efficient and faster. But the issuance of the documents and the certificates are still done in a centralized electronic system. Because of this, citizens still have to rely heavily on bureaucrats and civil servants to get their documents and certificates done. As we know, bureaucracy can be a highly inert and inefficient system anywhere in the world. Because of this, various blockchain enthusiasts have been proposing the idea of introducing the blockchain to automate all bureaucratic affairs, including ID issuance through a decentralized system. People refer to the process as blockchain ID, the next decentralized step of bureaucratic reform after the centralized e-ID system with all its limitations. Currently, the city of Illinois, Chicago has adopted blockchain to digitize land ownership and birth certification. Meanwhile, the Brazilian Ministry of Planning has explored the use of blockchain for similar purposes. What does the future hold for blockchain ID? I'm your host, Bastian Bartoldi, and I will be talking to Blockchain Zoo CEO Roberto Capodieci to explore the issue. Okay, so besides the countries and the city that I mentioned before, are there any governments in the world which have considered adopting blockchain for documents and certificates management or processing?
Yeah, actually, blockchain is getting adopted widely to handle document flows and validation of data as a collateral for other systems. One thing that is not yet happening on the government side is the issuance and ID in blockchain, because the ID are issued by the government in a centralized manner. The interesting thing is that many governments are issuing ID. They have a certificate inside their EID and they can produce a cryptographic signature. This makes this ID card able to be used also on a blockchain to sign transactions. That's very particular things. We implemented this functionality in DecBC, but I haven't seen that used somewhere else. It's still anyway a huge advancement on the possibility to produce signatures that cannot be counterfeited, that are authentic, safe, and are electronic, so they can travel via internet without losing the quality or the authenticity. This makes easy to work with electronic document that can be electronically signed. So whenever before I need to print out the document, put a stamp, sign, put the whatever tax stamp on it. Now a document can be electronic in the form of a PDF, so good because we don't waste paper and we save the nature. The digital signature is electronic and can stay in electronic format with the document, and all this can travel very fast from a side to the other of the planet via internet. So I guess that there are a lot of advantages in the use of electronic IDs and electronic signature. And when it comes to blockchain, the adoption of blockchain can marry very much the possibility of the idea of electronic document, because the blockchain is a platform to support electronic documents. Blockchain makes them singular, unique, so there is impossible to create multiple copies to do multiple things. For example, even if a document is electronic, let's say it's a title, I can make many copies, present in many different places, and they don't know that the other party are seeing the same document to give, for example, a discount of an invoice rather than a loan, while in the blockchain the document is unique, so if you send it to somebody, it cannot be handed at the same time to somebody else. Obviously, with Bitcoin, if I give somebody one Bitcoin, I cannot give the same Bitcoin to other 5 people. Once I give it to the first person, I don't have it anymore, and that's the beauty of a blockchain. So once I use a letter of credit or an invoice to go to a bank and request a loan and give this as a guarantee, I cannot give the same document to another bank. or once I rent the house, there's a certain address to somebody, I cannot rent the same house to another person at the same time, for example, if the blockchain are coded to support this sort of things.
Okay, also now I understand. So the thing is, the government still issue the documents or certificates, but then like these documents and certificates can be made available as a hash, right? In the blockchain, so that whenever the person needs to make a transaction which require these documents or certificates, like they can do it through the blockchain. Yeah, is that the idea?
Yeah, blockchain is not really the place to leave heavyweight attachment or big things, but the necessary metadata can be extracted from a document, signed together with the document hash as you suggest, and allow the logic to be processed properly. For example, if the issuing of a certain document required the person to be at least 18 years of age, and the birth certificate is handling in the blockchain rather than the ID, then the procedure can only proceed if the digital signature comes from somebody whose record shows that has 18 years of age, as the transaction is bounced. Not because somebody is being competent or not on the other side, but because the rule written in the blockchain say it is. So once a procedure is coded in the blockchain, is executed only if match all the parameters and the rules that are set in the logic of the transaction.
Okay, so what are the advantages of a decentralized platform in terms of like document handling, and particularly when we're talking about like citizen ID or passport compared to the centralized one?
Obviously, decentralizing some things allow multiple parties to access it without depending on the API provided by the central party, allow transparency in the data that are handled in a transparent way, and accountability as well, because people cannot cheat or modify or change the history of the past, right? So the possibility to say there are certain kind of documentation that are processed through a blockchain, where hundreds of government offices have the possibility to operate, agencies that have a license issued by the government that can operate on this, obviously makes the process way easier, faster, and 24/7 available, because if I decide finish a long day of work to sit down and take care of all the bureaucratic aspect of my life at 10 p.m. Now I cannot, because it depends on office to be open and people to give me the okay or not in the procedure, while if things are in a blockchain, I obviously can process them whenever I want. And then the counterpart of the government, for example, can stamp their okay electronically when they're at the office the following working day.
So how does the blockchain system authenticate like a person's identity?
Okay, this is a good question. So the bridge between physical world and blockchain, electronic world, is given by the, for example, the issued ID from the government that has the capacity to produce electronic signatures. So the capacity to produce a cryptographic signature, which is a mathematical result of an operation, is what certifies the authenticity of the action. In theory, my government issue ID card with my PIN can be only used by me. So even if I lose it, somebody doesn't know the PIN cannot produce signature in my behalf, as well as other family members that try to do something on my behalf, they can't. So once the document is signed with that card, then it has to be signed by me. That's the basic logic, right? Then I think a lot of education has to go around. The signing a piece of paper with my hand signature comes with no devices. It's a pen in my hand and I can produce the signature whenever. Obviously, people can fake my signature and then there will be the attempt. Once somebody can get my government ID card and PIN, there is no way to know that somebody signed in my behalf, because there's a number and that's the result, so that's the signature 100% authentic.
And what about the security of the blockchain? You know, like how can like different programming result in different security level?
Blockchain has not been built as an item with that in goal. It was a solution to make decentralized money for the internet, the Bitcoin, and as being adopted to do things that are go outside the magic money for internet, while the mechanics for the security of the blockchain were studied and built to do cryptocurrency, not to do document handling and management. So there are certain aspects that is important to reconsider when adopting blockchain for uses that are not related to finance. At the moment, people is experimenting and doing a lot of things with systems that are not 100% secure for things that are not cryptocurrency based. We are working, and a lot of people is working, creating new mechanics, new models, new consensus systems to get blockchain that are not related to finance to be strong and secure anyway. So we are in a phase of evolution where the technology needs to evolve. In fact, I invite everybody who want to help coding a system that is innovative to Google for DecBC or DecBC and check our source code, look our tutorial. There is the possibility to look at the mechanics that are different from those classic done for the initial kind of blockchain.
Okay, so besides the countries which I mentioned above, like for instance Brazil, like what are some of the other countries which have moved over adopting blockchain for to integrate it with their like citizenship documents and certificates?
Blockchain, there are many countries that are doing serious experiments or even on production using blockchain for several things. Estonia in Europe is one of the leader countries for this kind of innovation, but many others are doing the same. Singapore in Asia is one of the countries where the government is pushing the adoption of blockchain even outside the financial sector. And I think that slowly, easy bottom up or top down, the adoption of blockchain is gonna happen because it's a lot more convenient, avoid human errors, is cheaper than a centralized system. It doesn't make sense everywhere. There are situations where current systems are much better anyway, but in other situations is a very good innovation that can be put in place. So I think eventually, slowly, all the government are going to look into this and do at least some proof of concepts.
Yeah, can you mention some instances in which the blockchain is not applicable in this case?
But there are a lot of situations where a blockchain, if everything is managed in a central party, a blockchain doesn't make sense because it's much more easy to handle things in a central place. It's more efficient, fast, and easy to manage. Blockchain makes sense when there are multiple parties working together. They have a time electing one additional party to just be the guarantor of the data for everybody, where it requires trust on this party. So when multiple parties are working together, they don't want to elect somebody they need to trust in order to manage data. Blockchain allow the system, so allow an architecture where everybody is relaxed. They have their own data center with their own data, and they know that nobody else is cheating on the information.
Okay, and then because you say that through the blockchain it can be faster and more efficient to take care of these bureaucratic affairs, is it automated? You know, like when we use blockchain to handle these processes or transactions, does the blockchain automate the whole thing with the metadata of our ID cards and certificates?
Blockchain is a computer system, is a computer software, is a technology. It needs to be coded to do what we want it to do. So obviously, it's not out of the box and knows exactly what is the process or something. But once it's coded and implemented, then it's gonna force people to go through the procedure that has been coded. There are blockchain that can be coded on the fly with smart contract. There are blockchain that only be born with a certain set of procedure and they need to be updated to do other things. Depends on the use. For example, when it comes to land ownership, the set of things that can be done can be a lot, but is limited to that. So it's better to have a blockchain that has all these things preset. When is the affair of life of city? For example, every day there can be something new. Should we vote for the lamppost? Should we change the direction of a road? So decision made by people where people can vote, or validity to do something, or change to the time for opening, closing shop. Then all these things need to be implemented on the moment that they're needed in the proper way, and then used as they are there.
Yeah. And what about the security of blockchain? What does it take to hack a blockchain or a peer-to-peer network?
How the blockchain is secure is based on the consensus. Consensus is a concept that as human we think is sitting around the table discussing and taking a common decision. But for a peer-to-peer network or server, a consensus is something very different. The server don't sit around the table and take a decision together. They need to react in the same way in front of the same option. So every node, when it has the option of choosing between two different things, look at this code and make the decision based on how it's been coded. Because all the nodes supposedly are coded in the same way, all the nodes are gonna make supposedly the same decision. If the logic for how this decision is made cannot be gamed, then the blockchain is secure. If somebody can trick the blockchain in making them to choose what it wants rather to what it should be chosen, then the blockchain is not secure. So this is the Achilles heel, if you want, of a blockchain. Is the consensus system, is a very complicated aspect of a blockchain, and is a very important, because once a blockchain is alive, it's like an animal on its own. Many nodes are running, and you need everybody to decide to make an update in order to bring the blockchain ahead. So it's important that this is coded properly. It's important this is very secure. In our book, in the first volume in our series, we go through all the different consensus that are there, and analyze how each one can be gamed or not, or is safe or not.
Okay. So what are the current limitations of blockchain, when we think about using it for certificates or personal identification?
Again, is how is the program, how is coded, right? I think that limitation in general for blockchain that are not being fully solved yet are scalability. So when there is huge amount of transactions rather than huge amount of data processed, blockchain have a problem for how they are designed, and there are works to solve these things, but in general it's just a slower mechanics than whatever any computer can do. Blockchain pretty much can be programmed to do, just a little slower, but with a lot of more accountability, auditing, timestamping, and so on and so forth. So again, it needs to be evaluated well where it makes sense to apply it and where not.
Okay. So I think that's all that I wanna ask. You still wanna add something?
No, I think we're good. I think we had this overview. Government issue ID card that they have a certificate that they can produce a digital signature are more powerful of what the government thought when they were issuing them, I think. things that can be done with those card are many more than just signing a PDF file, which is the initial thought of the government. So in these terms, I think that we're gonna see a lot of interesting application in the next future.
Okay, so thank you for tuning in to our podcast, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast channel and our YouTube channel, Blockchain Zoo, to find more interesting contents about decentralization. I'm your host, Sebastian Bartogi, and see you again next time.